You are the holy grail, the Magdalene. Woman, no need to search any longer. The priest is...
Welcome to the Woman Arising podcast, hosted by Cathy Hartenstein and Zeffi Devi, where we elevate and celebrate inspiring women on the rise. In this podcast, we talk to women from all walks of life about their soul's journey, the obstacles they overcame, and how they embody their feminine power. We hope to elevate women's place in the world, showcase their contributions, and provide inspiration for all women to rise to their fullest potential. Today, our guest is Cynthia James, an international transformational and emotional integration leadership coach. She is an inspirational leader, guiding people to make changes at a deep level for lasting healing. Cynthia excels as a speaker, coach, singer, composer, and multiple award-winning author of What Will Set You Free and Revealing Your Extraordinary Essence, and the #1 Amazon bestseller for I Choose Me, The Art of Being a Phenomenally Successful Woman at Home and at Work. Her newest book, Does My Voice Matter?, was released in 2022. She is the founder and host of the acclaimed podcast, Woman Awakening. Cynthia James embodies the quote, "I am not what I have done. I am what I have become." And she leads others to do the same. Her own life was transformed as she transcended a violent and abusive childhood. Through education and personal healing, she created the foundation for all her programs. Her work in self-care strategies and emotional integration supports leaders, women, and organizations internationally. Welcome, Cynthia. It is our honor to have you with us today. Women Arising has been very lucky to have you participate in our programs in the past, as you've been very integral to our work and that you have done so much to uplift and enlighten women.
Welcome.
Thank you, Cathy, and thank you, Zeffi. I am so grateful to be here and to support Women Arising. Yeah, it's been my pleasure to participate so many times.
Yes, it's really our pleasure, actually, because you're such an inspiration to women. And you've been there with us from the beginning, which was 2007 or 2008, something like that, when we first started. And it's just so much to know that you give so much to women all these years, even with your codes, the codes that you have. I love them. Your new books, I think it's just an amazing, amazing way of helping women all over the world. So on that note, I just want to ask you, when you first even heard of Women Arising, of course, back then and even now, what did you feel? What did you think about? What kind of images and emotions were coming up for you? And what really awakened you? What really rised in you?
I think the first thing I felt was, for lack of a better phrase, a heart smile. That, this planet needs balance. It needs the feminine to rise and move to its natural state of being, to bring more love, more light, more nurturing, more caring. Whenever I see women, running for office, whether it's our country or another country, it says, I want to bring hope. I want to bring something new. I want to remind us that we are here and interconnected. And therefore, our job is to care for the planet, to care for the children, to care for every man, woman, and child. So I think Women Arising is for us to awaken on a level that is necessary to take away the greed and the focus on power and bring it more to the heart.
That's amazing. Thank you. Because yes, it is about, our heart. And Women Arising, of course, it does the womb. We have the red tent energy and all that behind it. But also we have the heart, because without the womb, the heart doesn't work, and vice versa.
Yeah, I really love that whole concept of love, and that's part of that as well. And that women leadership and really kind of lighting that path forward for how we really make those changes, and that sense of hope. It's really an important component that I think does ground us. You've had an astounding career and been such an acclaimed author and speaker and leader. And also, I know you've used your own personal journey to sort of shape your messaging and share how you grew to help other people do the same. And so I'm wondering if you can sort of share your personal journey about, like, how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I grew up in Minnesota to a single mom. And I come from 5 generations of women who abused, traumatized, left the planet depressed, ill, overweight. So I had a father that was an alcoholic, a biological father, and I had a stepfather who was a wife beater and a pedophile. So I thought that was normal. I thought that other people were living the same way. And then, because I've always been a seeker, and because I always had this desire to travel, to see different places, to meet different people, what started happening was I put myself in places that were uncomfortable because I was really shy, because that's how I felt I would stay safe. And so in high school, I became a cheerleader, and I was in the choir, and I was secretary of my class. And that's how I created another persona, perhaps. And she was an extrovert. And so she would, she would be out there and I'd be singing, and I was a model. I was doing all of this stuff. And it was kind of like how I moved away from my home environment. And so, because I was a seeker, I always took risks. And for some reason, even though it was uncomfortable, I was unwilling to stay where I was.
Mhm.
And so I took a leap, or several leaps. And I did a TEDx talk called "The Past Does Not Define Us." And what I learned is that you can go through a lot of things in life, whether they're from childhood or teen years or young adult, whatever. But it doesn't define who you are, and it doesn't define the choices that you get to make. You get to choose the life you want. You get to choose how you want to be revealed in this life. It took me a while, and I hit a lot of roadblocks and a lot of ceilings, but that became my whole way of being. It's like, what do I have to do to shift a mindset that says I'm not enough, that says I'm not important, that says I don't matter?
I think that's extremely powerful, because I think sometimes we do feel a little bit trapped in our past, or feel like that's the defining factor of who we are, but I really like this idea of, like, I'm not, what I've done, it's what I'm becoming, right? It's
Yes.
about becoming. And, you know, you said, like, you did hit some roadblocks in that, but, can you go in a little bit further about what does that mean to become, and what's that journey, and what was that journey for you as you became, you know?
That's so beautiful. I remember reading Michelle Obama's book, Becoming,
Yeah.
and I had a lot of resonance with some of the things she said, although, I wasn't in the White House and all that stuff. But it was, if we are all divine sparks, which I believe we are, then we all come encoded with gifts and promises and ways to impact the planet at the time that we're here, because we're essential. And so for me, it's like, how do I become totally present with what is, honor what is, and open to the field of possibility and potentiality to move me to the next level of expression. And so that's always been my life. I mean, I remember one time going for a job interview and they said, well, it looks like you can't make up your mind. And I was like, well, it's not that I can't make up my mind. It's that I love learning new things and I love being in new spaces and I love meeting new people. And it's why travel, from the time I was 19, I was an airline hostess, for TWA. And it's why today I take people on pilgrimages, because I feel like the more I get into the world, the more I understand that we have more similarity than differences.
I think that's really powerful, the things that unite us versus the things that maybe separate us. I relate to having all these multiple passions and loving to learn new things. And it's almost like a curiosity. And especially if we, I know you're a coach and you're interested in transformation. It sounds like that is a theme through some of the work that you do. That I think that curiosity is a big part of it, right? Because we want to be able to always be learning, always be growing, always becoming, right? Just like in that sense. What were some of the major obstacles you faced sort of along the way? And what were the things that you would say sort of shaped and defined you through that process?
Well, I'll start with the obvious. I'm a woman of color in a country that's still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so also, when you come from an environment where there's struggle and lack, then it's like you're always trying to overcome something. You're always trying to achieve. What I realized for myself is that my biggest obstacle was me looking for outside validation. Several years ago, I had an adrenal issue, and the place I was at gave me no choice but to take a sabbatical because I was headed towards Addison's disease. And in the 3-month sabbatical, when you don't have phone calls and emails and texts and all this stuff to grab your attention, or all these projects you have to do, you have to be with yourself. And so what I realized is I was going down the same path as my family, the women in my family. I was about 30 pounds heavier than I am today. I was always asking for more, taking on more, so that people could see that I was valuable, that I could prove myself. And what I had to do was go, okay, who am I without doing that? Who am I owning who I am, loving who I am, nurturing who I am? And I had done a lot of therapy and I had a master's degree in spiritual psychology and all of these things. But it's like I had to go back to my basics and to my spiritual practice and connecting with the divine energy within me to get clear about what lights me up, what's important to me, whether people think it's good or not. I will tell you, my last book is called Does My Voice Matter? And I'm in a group called the Transformational Leadership Council, and it's authors and speakers and, people who are change makers in the world. And I had written a book proposal for this book. And one of the people there was a Hay House author. And she said, oh, this is important. I'm going to introduce you. And so she introduces me to them. And the woman gets right back to me and she says, oh, this is great. This is a topic that's timely. Can you just add a couple of these things and send them back to me? And so I did. And 3 weeks later, I saw her name pop up in my email, and I was all excited. And she said, we think you're a great writer, and this topic is extraordinarily timely, but we're going to say no because we don't believe you have enough platform, a big enough platform. Now, for anybody listening who doesn't understand what that means you need hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram and Facebook and all those things. And I teach, I mean, I work with leaders and I teach them, one door closes, another opens. But it hit some part of me that was young and fragile still. And I just put the book down. And I put it down for like a year and a half until COVID came. And, with COVID, we were all trying to figure out what we were doing with our lives. And so it came rushing back in to finish this book, to write this book. And I'm telling you this because what I realized is that whole adrenal issue in that space, I had learned on some level to trust myself, to understand that nobody can deliver my message the way that I can. And no one is here to do what I've come here to do. And so I can trust that. And so, serendipity happened in a company that publishes female authors, green-lighted my book right away, and it's been wonderful. But it was such an awakening because there was a part of me that thought, well, if Hay House accepts me, then it's really good.
I think so many women would relate to everything that you're saying because I think we do go through that. And I love the title of the book, Does My Voice Matter? And that, we start to define ourselves by these sort of outside accolades, or we measure ourselves. But I love this idea. And sometimes, like you said, the universe comes along and says, hey, this is what's in store for you, like with, the stuff that you were recovering from, but that we have to go in and we have to kind of go deeper and deeper. And it is almost like a layered journey sometimes. Even if we figure this one thing out, there's the next thing that we have to kind of decipher for ourselves. And that self-validation, I think your other title of one of your books is I Choose Me, right? I think that's, and I've read that book and it's fabulous. And I think that we have to constantly be choosing ourselves and constantly, being the champion of our own worth in these things. And then also this idea that if one door closes, another opens, that we don't always know all the opportunities that are going to unfold as we venture into our truth in that way. So I think that's a very powerful. You talked a little bit about some of the obstacles and things that you faced. And one of them you said was being a woman of color. And, one of the things that we see a lot in the world is that women are marginalized, and especially women of color can experience that as well. I'm wondering, was there ever a time where, you saw that in the world that affected you, or that you experienced that personally, that being a woman, you had to really kind of claim some of that power for yourself?
Yeah, well, I'll start with when I was young. There's a conversation in the Black community that is, you have to work harder and be better to get to the place that so-and-so can get to, right? And I think the same thing is for women. I worked in corporate America in a media management company, and it was like, you have to be brilliant, you have to be smart, but don't be too loud, don't be too pushy, doing the same things that we're watching the male counterparts do. Don't do that if you ever want to get into the C-suite, and it's like if you are opinionated, if you have an opinion about something, you have to be very thoughtful about how you present it, because there's a different lens through which women are looked at and perceived. So for me, there was a point where I said, I have to stop looking at myself in half. The professional woman over here and the personal woman over here. I'm the same person. How do I bring my authenticity? How do I bring my gifts in a world that is loving and kind, but it's clear. And I don't withhold my power to make other people comfortable.
I absolutely love that thought. And I think so often we compartmentalize, or you know, we don't get to integrate in the same way and have that courage to do so. So it's really hit me hard. I appreciate that sentiment quite a bit.
Okay, so describe when you felt most connected to your feminine essence and power, like the insights that you gained also from that experience.
So I was 23 years old, and I had lived in New York. And it had been hard on me, just because I'm a sensitive and an empath. And even though I was traveling and doing all these things, there was a part of me that the energy was heavy. And so I decided to move back home to Minnesota to get myself together and decide what I was going to do. And while I was there, I decided, well, I was a model in high school. Let me go back and do some modeling. So I found a photographer and did some modeling pictures. And at the end of the shoot, he said, listen, these pictures are great. You should enter the Miss Minnesota Universe pageant. And I laughed and I said, they're not having a Black queen. Are you crazy? He said, you never know. So I want permission to enter you. And I'm like, go ahead, whatever. I was really arrogant. I was like, that. And so I get this call and they said, we'd like you to come in for an interview. Now, the thing about it is, because I was so sure that it wasn't possible, I went in totally being myself, totally being my authentic self, my feminine self, my voice, bringing my voice. And so when they accepted me to be in the pageant, I still thought it was an impossibility. So I didn't tell anybody except my mother and my brother and my grandmother. I didn't tell any people I grew up with, because I'm like, nah, this is not happening. But what I was aware of, because of my life experiences up to that point, I had a certain confidence in the way I walked, in the way I spoke, in the way I presented myself. Today, when I look back, I know I was embracing my full feminine self. Well, I won that contest and went on to compete for Miss USA. But it was a big lesson for me, because it was like, when you cease to push, when you cease to try, when you cease to make things happen, you can bring the fullness of who you are as a person and as a woman.
Wow, what a creation. By just not really going after it, correct? Which is amazing, because that is the connection. That's a connection that I think the feminine has. She can create without pushing, with not striving, like the hard work I'm talking about. Of course, we can strive and get things done, but we don't have to work hard. We can just say, okay, this is who we are. If it happens, it's beautiful. If it doesn't, I'm okay with that too, because I think that also has to do with our self-esteem.
Yes.
Right? You were strong enough to say, well, if it happens, fine. If it doesn't, it's okay. But I'm strong enough to take either one. And in that way, how would you guide women to get into that place, in a sense, like not to have so much emotion connect to, I have to do it, I have to be beautiful, I have to do that, that kind of life that a lot of the young women and older women, of course, it's going through right now.
So if you can embrace the truth that you're an original imprint, there's nobody else like you on the planet, not with your iridology or your fingerprints, your DNA. There's nobody else like you. And I feel like the universe has so divinely created that truth so that each one of us could come here and be the best that we can be. Bring our gifts and our talents and our wisdom to ourselves, to our families, our communities, to the world at large, And I think when you get that there's nobody else like you, then you cease to compare yourself and strive to be like others. I did a talk a long time ago, I started with, the Jack Nicholson movie that starts with all these models walking across the screen and him talking about how he's attracted to all these younger girls, right? and I said, the magazine covers and the movies, this, this is not real. Everybody doesn't weigh 100 pounds and, have the best breasts and the best butts and the best. They just don't. But they get to honor it. And if you stop trying to fit the mold, to fit in that little container that says, this is what you're supposed to look like, this is what you're supposed to speak like, this is what you're supposed to be like. If you can just break outside of that box, then you start to understand that, well, I get to be me. I recorded my last album and I wrote a song called Just Being Me, and it was like, no matter what the circumstance, no matter what the pain, I'm here to live a life of love. I've got everything to gain. And so it's like you get to bring you, because you're going to be on this planet until you fulfill whatever that is, the way you came to do it. So, why not play full out?
Exactly. And it's also, really powerful what you said is be you, be in your truth, be authentic. And I think that's an advice we wish all women got when we were younger. Do you kind of feel like when you were a young woman growing up or a young girl growing up, so you had such a hard, in a sense, life, did you wish that was an advice that it was given to you, or there's some kind of other advice that you wish you got?
Well, I think it would have been good. It would have made life easier. But when I wrote I Choose Me, I was doing research, and until the early 1900s, women were property. And we were told that our job was to get married, have children, take care of the home. And even if you worked outside of the home, it was doing those kinds of things. And the other message was, your job is to take care of other people first. Your job is to make sure they're comfortable, make sure they're happy. And then, if there's any time left, do you. We're watching a resurgence of that energy around the world, where women are concerned. And what I will say is that, as interesting as the females in my family were, the one thing that I loved about them was their independence. They learned how to take care of themselves, to survive, to take care of their families. But it was like, no matter what the circumstance was, they could find a way to take care of themselves. And so that was a message. But that it was hard, that it was tough, that, I was Black in America, and all those messages were happening simultaneously as the independence. What I would say to any woman who's listening here is, you came encoded with so much love and so much power that if you can tap into that, it's at the cellular level, it's at the soul level. If you can tap into that, the universe will meet you. Synchronicity will meet you. And there will be a coalescence of energy that is striking. Because really, I consider myself a miraculous unfolding. Based on where I came from, there's no logical reason why I should be doing what I'm doing today, except that I was guided and supported, and a part of me knew that how I was born, the reality that I was born into, was not the truth of my life.
Wow. I like got goosebumps as you were saying the whole thing. So how do you cultivate the feminine energy within yourself? And what is the role spirituality plays in your life? And of course, your own life and your personal life. As you said earlier, you combine it, but what what more can you let us know about your spiritual growth in your feminine?
You know, I feel like that statement that we're spiritual beings having a human experience is true.
Yeah.
Transformation, from my point of view, and healing takes place at the spiritual level, and it moves into form. And the interesting thing is the women in my family, as challenged as they were all prophetic dreamers, and they were highly faith-filled women. And so they were very clear about the power of intuition and the power to see. You know, I remember, this is so funny, when I was like 7 years old, my grandmother took me to see this woman, and she was a tea leaf reader. And I'm like, what is this? And she said, you'll see. And so the woman sat down and she did her thing, and she turned over this cup. And this is what she said to me. She said, you're going to be on mountaintops, and there will be many people who listen to what you have to say. Now, I was 7, and my grandmother said, pay attention to that, because you're destined to do things beyond what you know.
Mm.
And I was so grateful. I mean, she took me to see healers and all kinds of other stuff. And I realized that she was doing all of that to say that this life circumstance that you were born into, is just a little piece, that there's possibilities, and it's spiritual. I mean, when I take people on pilgrimages, I work with shamans and healers and teachers, and I take people into spaces where it's like you get to see that there's an ancient lineage that runs through you. And you also get to see that the gifts of spirit are eternal. They have gone through all kinds of times and cultures and civilizations on this planet, and you're a part of it.
That's really amazing, because I believe in that too. My background is Greek, and we have the ancient Greece and the feminine within that, and of course connected to patriarchy. And also, my grandmother was very psychic when she was young, and she died. She said she would die in 6 months, and she died. So she knew exactly, what she's going to do. And I believe that those gifts are transferred to us.
Yes,
Correct?
100%.
Yeah, and I believe very much that those things were transferred to me too. And also the perspective of how can we bring women to understand their future and the world we're moving into. These new energies that coming in also, because that's pretty powerful, because they forget the ancient ways. And, we need to kind of help them bring back the ancient ways, connecting to this new energy that's happening.
Yeah, the feminine is deeply connected to ritual. You see it in cultures. I mean, the red tent, you see it in Native American cultures and indigenous cultures everywhere. The ritual, it awakens something at the cellular level. We carry DNA from ancestors with us. And that means we carry on some level the memories, the power, and the grace that they knew. And they would evoke it through ritual. And I think it's one of the reasons why people over time have been attracted to churches and spiritual communities and things, because the ritual nature of it activates something within them. So what I would tell any woman listening here, it's like, find your tribe. Your group of women. I was with a group of women for 30 years in Los Angeles. We called ourselves a prayer circle. We grew up together. We went through marriages, divorces, illnesses, all kinds of stuff. And the one thing that was there was that we always told each other the truth. We always were our greatest cheerleaders. And even when I moved away and people moved away and stuff, we all knew we could send out something that says, okay, we need a prayer circle, and everybody would gather. One of our members passed away last year, and it was surprising and it was striking. And we all gathered in Los Angeles for the memorial. And before the memorial itself, our group met in a living room. And it was like no time had passed. And so we talked about what we loved about each other, what we had grown through, what we desired for ourselves and for the others. So if you can find, you're this Women Arising, I mean, I loved when we were in Sedona and everybody was connecting. We were doing all of these things. If you can't travel to some place, you're listening to this podcast, you're being a part of this community is awakening something in you that can remember who you are and who you've come here to be. I mean, when in our country, when Roe versus Wade was overturned, women took to the streets on levels that we were like, whoa. I mean, because it was like, we have a right. We get to choose what's right for us, and we've seen that in different places over time where groups of women have come together for healing, to pray for people, to lift people. I just feel like community is a healing salve.
I think that's extremely true. And that's part of our mission and our goal with what we're doing is to create that space for women to come together to elevate and celebrate each other. And I think it's so important. And I think women crave it and want to be a part of it. And when that does happen, the power behind it is electrifying. And I think when you're talking, both you and Zeffi were talking about this ancient energy and this lineage. And I think what's kind of interesting is it's kind of a bookend where it's like a remembering, right? A remembering
Yes.
of who we've been, who we are. And then I love that it bookends with some of your ideas of becoming, right? So it's like this remembering of this power and then this becoming of what that means today and who we are and how we celebrate that and perpetuate it in that organic, authentic way, because it's really necessary work, I feel, obviously.
100%, especially now. I think the energy of the woman, of the feminine, is so essential because we need to leave a legacy for our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren.
And, one of the things that, just in knowing you for the short period of time and going to your workshops and sort of hearing your message, I find it incredibly inspiring. And I find the way that you look at life very inspirational. And, and some of the conversations that we're having today. And I'm curious, like, as you're thinking about that, what is it that you would like to sort of inspire right now in women and, in terms of that world that we can create? What would that be for you?
I would like to, first of all, thank you. I'd like to encourage women to get curious about creativity. Creativity doesn't just look like singing or dancing or painting. It's like innately, we all have a creative spirit. And when you look at history, every aspect of history, the change makers were the creators. And so if we are encoded with extraordinarily beautiful gifts, get curious about how do you bring those gifts into creative form. For some of us, it might be the way we dress. For some of us, it might be the way we do our homes. For some of us, it might be how do we create difference in business. It doesn't matter where it is, but creativity bursts open old boxes and old paradigms and creates new energy and new ways of being.
That is like music to my ears, like my passion. It's creativity. Like if somebody said, "What's your defining teacher?" That would be it. So I was a theater artist for years. I make jewelry, so for me, that's sort of the breath of life. So I absolutely adore that. Cynthia, it's been so exciting to hear all of the different aspects that you've shared with us today. How can people get in touch with you? And what are some of the things that you have? I know you said you do the pilgrimage. I know you've got these wonderful books. What are ways that people can experience your work and connect with you?
Also on pilgrimage. I like to know the
Oh,
places.
okay. Yeah. Okay. So cynthiajames.net is my website. All of my books are there, my monthly newsletter. I have a private community that meets in Kajabi because people were feeling disillusioned about their privacy in Facebook and some of the other places. Also, all of my classes, my podcast is called Women Awakening. It's on all the platforms. And I've interviewed over 200 women around the world who are change makers that have decided to take charge of their own lives and make a difference on the planet. I have a couple of classes coming up. One's called Finding Your Voice, and the other one's called Okay, Ladies, Let's Write a Book. And so that'll be on the website. Pilgrimages, I take people to Peru, Italy, France, Egypt. This year, I've taken a group to the south of France, through the Mary Magdalene Trail and into Chartres to walk the labyrinth. And then I'm taking a group to Egypt for 12 days to have an inward journey and an awakening with a spiritual teacher and an Egyptologist. Next year, I'll be taking people to Damanhur, Italy to meditate in the temples of humankind, and I'll be doing another trip to France. I think taking women back to those energy fields, it awakens something in us because it was alive there. It was very alive there.
Well, exactly. I agree. That's amazing. Well, that's why I want to know the places, because I believe in all those places that you talked about to take women to get to the next level. It's the energy there is so alive and it's so powerful that when we go there, we definitely waken up. We definitely, something clicks inside of us, don't you think?
100%. And you can feel the power, especially, in the south of France, women were doing extraordinary things, even after they tried to eliminate them and push them down, that they passed on the energy. So yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
Well, and I think, there's a craving to reconnect to that energy. I feel like I know a lot of women who are doing these tours and going on these tours, and one of the other topics that I know is big for you, Cynthia, is transformation. And I do feel like when you go on these pilgrimage, the transformation is a big part of it. That sort of reconnecting to some of those essential parts of ourselves, and that woman rising and awakening that you're talking about. So that's great. It has been such our pleasure. I have to say, going to some of workshops, the experiences that we've had here with Cynthia, we can't recommend her highly enough. And we really hope you will connect with her and go to her website and hopefully go on maybe one of these exciting pilgrimages or take one of her classes or workshops. So thank you so much for being our guest today. It was a true pleasure to have you and to learn about so many aspects of the wonderful work you're doing.
Thank you. It was my honor to be here. Much love to you both.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Woman Arising, where we celebrate the resilience, wisdom, and power of women on the rise. Remember, when women rise, we all rise. If you're ready to embark on your journey of empowerment, sign up for our mailing list at womenarising.com and join our community of strong, inspiring women. To connect with Zeffi Devi and ignite your inner fire, visit zeffidevi.com and sign up to get your free tantric meditation. Let Zeffi illuminate your path, helping you discover the magic and power that reside within you. To connect with Cathy Hartenstein and claim your spectacularness, visit createmorebliss.com and sign up for a free 30-minute consult call where she can help you break through your emotional blocks to success. Let Cathy be your guide on this journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Thank you for being a part of the Women Arising community. Together, let's continue to uplift, inspire, and empower women everywhere. Until next time, keep rising, keep shining, and keep embracing the divine feminine power that resides within you.
You are the Holy Grail, the Magdalene. Woman, no need to search any longer.